In today's episode, we'll talk about Wicked and a bit more on leaving churches and our reflections on our journey so far and a little bit of what's to come in season 2.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi everybody. Good to be here. Hi Danielle.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes I forget I have to keep talking.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You just throw
now
it to
he'll
me.
go. No, not really.
No, come on. You're the host.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Hey, so
Hostess with the mostest.
that's right.
Okay.
So this is our last episode of this season.
Yes.
I guess we're kind of calling it, we're going to chunk it up a little bit just to
Right.
seasonal breaks and stuff. So
And this was kind of an unplanned one, but
yeah.
we thought we would do a little bit of a retrospective on.
yeah, can't get enough of each other.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Just got to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've heard a lot of good things about your hosting, by the way. People are very impressed by you. You
Wow.
love this kind of stuff, don't you? This is Danielle's worst nightmare.
people don't believe it. I don't like. I mean, I like it.
No.
I like the activity of it.
Sure.
But like,
you
I
hate
don't
it
need
inside.
people. Yeah, I don't need people to talk to me about
Yeah.
it. I don't need to be good at it.
But you're very good. You're a very good
Okay,
host.
thanks.
People love your voice
Great.
and you're quippy and, you know.
Thank
cute
you.
and-
End podcast. See you next season.
All right.
For
What are we
more.
talking about?
Well, I wanted to talk about Wicked.
You would, Danielle.
Listen, we still haven't debriefed about it. We
I
went
know,
with a
we
group
really
of people.
haven't. Right.
We went with a group and
We did.
We talked like real quick in the parking lot, but I felt like I couldn't go into it. I was like,
Yeah.
I have so much more to say. And we won't say it today either because I have too much to say.
It's very anti-Christian to like Wicked. Do you know that?
I don't.
We probably
And Harry
shouldn't be-
Potter and all the
we probably
things.
shouldn't be talking about it.
Okay.
We're going to do ourselves in.
We'll lose our last 8 pastors. So here's my thoughts.
Okay.
You tell me. I actually
But
want people,
we've
yeah.
established on this podcast
Yeah.
already that we both really enjoy musical theater
Yes,
and
love.
both enjoy
movies.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
Music.
So, music.
It kind of.
Yeah, it kind of blends all those together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew I would just like it for itself,
Mm-hmm.
like just because I love the story, I love the music,
Yeah.
but I was like really surprised,
About what?
like how good it was to me.
Yeah.
To me, you might totally disagree. And the more and more I thought about it, and the more I kind of like looked into things. Some of the stuff we even talked about, like how Ariana's face, like, oh, she doesn't really have the face when she's
theater
singing. Yeah,
face,
the
yeah.
theater face. Actually, some of it was intentional. So it's interesting. I don't know. Anyway, I liked, they just don't make movies like this anymore. Where it's like, they built like a 3D set
Right.
and they like go in there and the actors are doing their stunts and all the things. And I felt like you could feel the joy in the work.
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
know. I
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
It was just like one of those like popcorn,
Yeah. What didn't you like about it? Was there anything you didn't like? Or did you like everything?
I mean, I liked most of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting where they chose to cut it for part 1 and part 2. Because for anybody who doesn't know the whole, and we can't really spoil it, not that like this is the audience for Wicked. We're gonna end up on like a YouTube short right next to Ariana, like Danielle and Derek on Wicked.
Yeah.
That's why we're green today. No, but like just there's so much foreshadowing that they did in really creative ways, and if you don't know the story right now, there's probably like 20% of the stuff that's just lost to you. Like that was for nothing. Anyway, so that was interesting. Like they didn't really like unearth any secrets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. So 2 confessions. One is I knew nothing about the story before seeing the movie.
Bad move, but fine.
Yeah, no, I'd never.
Well, Aiden too, right? Your
And
daughter, right?
Aiden,
Yeah.
well, and Aiden had never seen even The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yeah.
So my
New experience.
Yeah, my thing was with Wicked itself. I've
Yeah.
obviously seen The Wizard of Oz
Yeah.
a bunch of times, and she had never even seen The Wizard of Oz. But so part of it was the story was new to me, which I loved, and I loved the backstory stuff. I did catch some of the Easter eggs and some of the stuff in there because, I read up on a little bit about the characters becoming the Wizard of Oz characters and some of that kind of stuff. So I knew that some of that was coming, but to me the music is unbelievable.
It's unreal.
And the Defying Gravity, I just that song has been in my head since we watched the movie. Like I literally wake up in the morning and that song is in my head, which is wild.
I'm either doing that or the choreography.
where they're going into the shiz.
Anyway, yeah.
So, and
it's a gorgeous
song, and that actress's voice is just unbelievably good, and the choreography at the end, and like I thought it had one of the best endings of any movie I've ever seen. It was like
I wanted to ask you that specifically. How, and if you agree, how did they do that without it being cheesy?
I don't know.
Because I was like, oh man, as soon as she like takes off, because on the stage it's just this grandiose thing, and you're like, ooh, how they pull that off?
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with like CGI and stuff, I don't know how they did it. Yeah. And I'm bawling through the whole thing. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was awesome.
They handled it well.
It was awesome. I thought it was long.
Yeah,
a little bit long. It was long. And you know, I told you that about Ariana Grande's face. Yeah. Like, I felt like the classically trained thing. Yeah. There were parts of it where she didn't feel like a theater singer, a Broadway singer,
right?
And you're saying that was intentional.
There were like if you're talking about the very beginning, all that was intentional.
Okay,
but if it's throughout, then that's not intentional.
Yeah, it was some throughout. Yeah. So it was like
Cynthia's face is very relaxed. It's very micro expression-y. Like she's in theater. She's in yeah.
And so like that's part of what I like about musical theater is that it's a different kind of singing.
Yeah,
it's a different kind of like expressiveness when it comes to, and it felt like, you know, Ariana was a little bit on the classical side of that, but
for sure,
who can complain about the music at all? It was so beautiful, and the scenery and all that kind of stuff was great. So I don't know if we're
boring you. End podcast again. If you guys don't use your tools, you have a fast forward. You know what to do.
Right.
But
we're even going in and putting chapters on the YouTube stuff to make sure people can find the next spot.
You can skip this.
Skip right on.
Unholy talk. Speaking of unholy talk, I'm just kidding. All right. So we've had a couple emails that circle this, but you got this real specific email about. We've been talking about leaving churches, reasons to stay, reasons to go, all the things. Yeah. And this email says, regarding reasons to leave a church, you didn't mention politics. And I think you've been critical of changing churches over politics in your sermons. But hypothetically, if someone was in an otherwise good church, but the pastor is shouting, quote, "Let's go Brandon," from the pulpit, would you consider that a reason to leave? It's like, this is super vague and hypothetical. However...
Very specific. At the same time.
So, you know.
Yeah. So, the "Let's Go Brandon" is a thing of its own that we're just going to leave alone.
Let's just move on.
So
just say, if the pastor's saying anything that's like politically divisive,
just super, and because that's not even necessarily like taking a side. That's like taking a side in the most obnoxious kind of way against the other side, you know, that sort of a thing. So, but we'll set that aside for a second. So I did talk about this, and it was really kind of toward the end of COVID when we were seeing, you know, COVID was a crazy time when lots of decisions were having to be made by churches that felt political.
Yeah, but
they weren't necessarily always, but, you know, so... You know, do we stay open or do we close? Do we wear masks or do we not wear masks? Do we distance? Do we not distance? Do we sing or do we not sing? Do we, you know, whatever. And at the same time, there's race riots in the streets. And what do we talk about regarding that?
How did we make it through? When people start synthesizing all the stuff that happened, my blood pressure just starts going.
And an election. So
what the heck?
Yeah, it was just a wild time.
Yeah.
So one of the things that concerned me a lot during that time, and it goes back to something we've said before about people being discipled by their cable news, discipled by their news feed and their app, discipled by social media, discipled by their political parties' talk points, and not being discipled by the church. And one of the consequences of that I did talk about in sermons was to say, now we're seeing people choose their churches based on which churches line up with their political views. And so now all of a sudden there's red churches, there's blue churches, there's, you know, people actually prioritizing their politics over their church choice, you know? And so that's kind of what I was, I'm sure, railing against at times through some of those sermons, just saying, hey, this is an upside down thing when we're choosing our church based on our politics. And so it goes back to some definitions I think that I gave these past couple episodes of, is this a true or false church? And I don't necessarily think that this puts it into the category of a true and false church. I think this example is more of a pure and impure kind of thing. That this would put a church kind of on a purity scale that would be probably more of the impure nature. And I guess my advice on something like this is, I'm always going to default to stay and work it out.
Yeah.
And if you have a relationship with that pastor, this would be a great opportunity to talk to that pastor about the impact that statement or that action had on you and your family and some of the concerns that it brought up in your mind. And so, I'm always going to advocate to stay and have a conversation and try to help that church to become a more pure church. I would say I think this is a really bad move by a pastor if a pastor were to do this.
Sure.
I mean, I've had people, sending me, we've done a couple of sermons on politics over the last year, and I'll typically get some feedback on those, as you can imagine. And a lot of the feedback has to do with people will send me sermons from other pastors and will say, this is what a real sermon on politics looks like.
Yeah.
And I've gotten sermons on kind of both sides of the...
And it just so happens to line up with their
politics.
Yeah.
And when I watch, and I'll check out bits and pieces of those, it's a political rally.
Yeah.
It's not a sermon. It feels like the Republican National Convention or the Democrat National Convention. And it's just talking points and talking points and talking points. And it's like, that's a less pure church
right.
when that becomes the focal point, the priority. And so anyway, my default is to say, even with something like this that feels extreme in our day, I mean, when you look back through history, there was some wild stuff going on in the church that people would stay and work out and can kind of get through together. Yeah. So that would be the default. I would say if that conversation is met with more political rhetoric that is divisive, we've had examples theologically even of churches that I know where a pastor will stand up and say, if you don't line up with Calvinism or what, pick your thing. You shouldn't even be part of our church, And so there is this kind of divisive rhetoric, not just in politics, but in theology as well, that when pastors start to draw a hard line like that, first of all, I think they're getting out of whack.
Yeah.
But secondly, if you can't work it out, that probably does come to a place where they're basically telling you you're not welcome in the church. And in that case, I think you're okay to move on.
Yeah. That's okay. So again, we're doing these just to help just kind of work stuff out together. And also if you need some content, you can go to the show notes or Derek's blog and feel free to copy and paste any of these answers. And also submit your own if you'd like. Okay. So we decided today we were going to talk just about some learnings that each of us have just through this first section of our Reinventing Church journey as Grace. And so, I think we're just going to, we each have a few.
We each have three, and we can kind of go back and forth. Okay. And I just want to, just for those that might be popping in, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but, this Reinventing Church journey for us has been, we're really moving from a church growth model, a mega church model, to a missional multiplication model of doing church, with really kind of prioritizing disciple making, and helping people to find their calling outside the walls of the church. How can the church resource people outside the walls? And so it's been a fascinating journey. We've been at it. We came through a consultation process for about 9 months and kind of laid the foundation. It's really been public with our church since January. We're coming up on almost a year. January, we kind of let the cat out of the bag, and then we've been kind of through almost 1 year of, again, doing a lot of foundational work. And so we're just taking pause and saying, we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff on this podcast, had some great guests, but just with you and I being in the fray of it, day in and day out, as we step back and just go, okay, what are some learnings so far far, and we may look back at these things a year from now and be like, oh man,
you had no
silly little
clue.
children.
You were learning nothing.
So you want to just go every other?
Yeah,
and
sure.
You start.
I'll start. Okay. So my first one is, this isn't necessarily a Reinventing Church thing. It's just a change thing.
Yeah.
And just reminding myself about not, don't underestimate the time that change management takes.
Yeah.
And like bringing people on board and realigning and all those things. We work with awesome people. Our team is great.
Yeah.
Our volunteers are great. Like everyone's great. And I think we have a culture here where most people are pretty like open-handed with their stuff. We're not having turf wars. We're not dealing with those kinds of things. So we're really blessed in that way. So even with people who are generally in when we want to do something, this is taking a long time to even just get everyone, marching down the same path. And we've been saying, I think in error, kind of like slow down. Like the only answer is to slow down. And Andrea, actually, who we had on a few episodes ago, that's a good listen if you haven't heard her yet. She said, it's not like you guys are on like a runaway train. It's like you're herding animals. You're herding goats. So some goats walk faster than other goats. Some cows walk faster than other cows. So the ones in the front, they might be like with you and they're going and they're leading and they're fine. The ones that are like lagging behind, either they need more clarification, they need more leadership, they need more guidance, or they're just not sure if they're in yet, which all of those are valid and fine. Probably for us, it's more on the other end because I think everyone's pretty much in.
Yeah.
So that was clarifying for me, and to think of like, we are all on the same ship, but we're all moving at different speeds based on how much information we have and how clear people have been with us. And so clarifying the win times a bazillion times. And just, I keep having a mental image of like the teacup ride at Disney, and like we're all on that ride, we're together, but like if we're leading a team, we also have our own little like teacup that we can like be spinning at a different, they're all spinning at different, rates. And so that was helpful for me to think of like, because I was struggling with the idea of like, oh, change management. Okay, we have to do all this, but slow down. But if we slow down too much, we're not going to have anything to change. We're going to just be talking about change because we're not changing. So it's like you need that conflict of like innovation in order to like feel the need for the change, I think. But then we have to, if I could do it over again, I would have been more diligent about clarifying the win with my particular team over and over and over and over and over again, like every week, over and over and over again. So that's a good one.
Yeah. And you were talking about people. I think it also applies to different ministries even.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Not necessarily individuals on the team, but different ministries that are involved, like some which are on the leading edge of the stuff that we're working on, and some that are just,
you just have to wait.
They're just not ready yet. And, we're not ready yet and they're not ready yet. And so it's like, that's by its very nature kind of lagging behind.
Yeah.
And, you can't use the slowest ones to set the pace, and you can't use the fastest ones to set the pace.
Right.
It's the pace is its own thing.
The pace is the pace.
Yeah. So that's great. So my first one is, and I'll say it first and then explain it. Grace, our church, is at a good size stage and predisposition to be doing these innovations. And this is like a self-encouragement.
You'll listen to it, taking
like,
a bath.
Okay, come on, dude.
We can do it.
Right, exactly. So part of this has been kind of being out and about over the last year and talking in different groups about what we're up to. And I'm part of a number of pastor networks and a lot of mega church pastors, to be honest with you, and a lot of small church pastors. So the reaction to what we're doing has been fascinating to watch. So, some are, it's like, oh, that's nice. Keep it up. Some have a, almost a real visceral response. I feel it's almost like kind of threatening.
Sure.
And of just like, hey, I would say the most common response is like, everything's up and to the right for us right now. Right. And so why would we change anything? It's working. And, we're kind of in that same boat.
Yeah, I also had that question. Yeah,
right.
At the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
And so everything is up and to the right for us, and it has been, and it's been more of a looking ahead, going, is this the path that our church needs to stay on for the next 10 years?
Right.
And if not, we should probably try to make the shift now. So, but what struck me is, as I look back at all of these reactions and responses. So if the pastor is, say, 60 or 62 years old or up, it's like something like this doesn't make sense, because it'll take too long.
Yeah.
And they'll feel like they have to abandon the church in the middle of the change, and that's not a wise thing.
Right.
And for big churches, it's a huge risk to make a sweeping change like this.
Yeah.
Like your people, your money, all the stuff is in the mix. For a real small church, there's a lot of small churches already doing this kind of stuff.
Right,
So
it's just who they are.
We're patterning after them in some ways. But if there's a small church that's kind of been on a church growth track to try to make big innovative changes like this, sometimes they don't have the resources or the people to do it. So when I look at kind of where we sit, we're a church of a couple thousand people. I'm 53, so I've got a little bit of a runway ahead, I think, to see it through.
Yep.
And we're big enough that we've got the resources to pull stuff off, but we're small enough that we're not betting the farm on, if it goes bad, it's going to sink the whole ship. Right. So anyway, it's actually been just comforting, encouraging to go. I feel like, we're in a position, and part of the reason we're doing this podcast is like, we want to be a resource to other churches that are thinking about this and make some of the mistakes and have some of the victories or whatever.
Yeah.
My thing is just, I feel like we're in a great space for us to be able to be those ones that'll do that, be those innovators, if you will, to try to make sense of it and hopefully share learnings with other people.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Yeah. That's a good one.
What's your second one?
Well, between coughs, that's the other thing. I cannot I have this perpetual dust cough. Oh. So I'm actually the worst podcast host.
Well, listen, we need one of those mute buttons where you can just,
Okay, that's a good idea. Next season. All right, my second one is this is going to sound weird because of my role, but to be clear and get comfortable with over communicating. So the programming team here at Grace that I lead is responsible for communications, marketing, graphic design, video, resourcing, content, and some content development. And so it's weird for me to say that, because I am passionate about communications, but this is more of a personal one. I get real sick of hearing my own voice. Yeah. And I needed to hear it from you in another, you were talking about something else, but I kind of took it that way. That part of it is, it's not confidence with me anymore. Part of it is a prideful thing, I think, where I'm okay, if I have to say 1 + 2 = 3 one more time, they're going to think I'm stupid, or they're going to think I don't trust them. And none of that is true. They're not going to think I don't trust. Right. The worst case scenario is they're going to think, wow, she really repeats herself a lot. But I have that thing in me that's I want to repackage it. I want to make it different.
Make it sound different, use different words.
It's just, the mission statement is the mission statement. Right. The goals are the goals, Right. And so I've needed to get comfortable with that, and comfortable with just honestly over communicating. Yeah. And when I think about, so a miss we had with that was we've talked about it before, but we had the 3035, it's not even 3035, 3035 logo that goes with our Wake the Lake thing. Beautiful logo, love it. Wouldn't change a thing about.
Right.
I would change one thing about it, but I wouldn't change anything about the look. Carlin, you did great.
Right.
But we didn't explain. We just assumed. I'll just say I assumed everyone would be like, "Oh, we've heard this. 30,000 people by 2035. Yeah, they'll figure that out. 30, 35, 30. No, they won't figure it out. Correct. And this is not a knock on anybody. We didn't roll it out right. What we just need to do is just explain it a couple times. It would have been fine. And I think we're fine now. We've done some social adjustments and stuff. But that versus the way we rolled out the concept of Dream Disciple. I don't think I've been in a meeting where that phrase has not come up. And so there's just a difference. And it's the same exposure. It's the same groups of people. And the way people have taken on Dream Disciple versus the way they have taken on 3035 are two very big, they're just different. So anyway, get comfortable with over communicating and learn how to be clear.
Yep, that's a good one. That's two. Okay, here's my second one. It's to, and this came to us about halfway through this year. The importance of breaking things down into what do we need to tweak and what do we need to invent.
That's changed, yeah.
That was for me anyway, it was a very groundbreaking realization, because when you're innovating and when everything can feel new, and when everything feels new, it's very overwhelming. And it all feels even more overwhelming when you haven't had this breakdown. And so for us, it looked like the assimilation. We're a church. We've been a church for a long time. We know how to do church.
Yeah.
And so we've been working this assimilation model, which is attend, connect, serve. How do you help people attend your church, connect to your church, serve in the church? Great. And then the other piece that we're laying over top of it is this multiplication funnel, which is called, trained, send. So help people find their calling, train them up in that calling, send them out to fulfill that calling in the world where they live, learn, work, and play. So we're doing innovation around that whole thing, and it felt like this overwhelming thing. And so we're saying, wait. We already do the assimilation funnel. We just need to tweak it through a disciple-making lens. And so how do we help our worship services, our groups, and our teams, how do we tweak them to give them more of a disciple-making bent? And then we have to invent this whole multiplication funnel, the sending part of it from scratch. And so great. As soon as we had that clarified, then it's like, okay, you guys work on tweaking what we have, making it more disciple-making, and now we'll do this innovation team over here that will invent the new stuff. And so again, it sounds basic to talk about it right now in this way, but it was like,
it changed.
Revolutionary when
I was like,
when it
what?
settled in.
You said it. I made you say it like 3 times, I think. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, with what we tweak, I'll say it again, break things down into what do we need to tweak and what do we need to invent.
And that's 2 different skill sets for people.
Right.
Aligned. Oh yeah, it was great.
Right.
Really
two different geniuses are involved in those processes. And so
that's
good. What's your third one?
My last one is to adopt an innovation cycle. And we historically have been very big on evaluation. So whether it's something that we feel like we innovated or not, we will spend a lot of time dissecting, what went well, what was missing, what was confusing. So we're used to the end part of that cycle. I think the part that we've learned through this is the beginning part, the more how to pilot things, how to take feedback and tweak things, and sometimes completely probably retool things. So I think adopting that, number one, it makes the end product, I think, better because it's not just like a top-down thing. You're getting feedback from people and you're able to, take that in, and it just makes it better usually. And then it also, like you just said, it pulls in this working genius, Patrick Lencioni widget thing. So if I take launch for an example, our launch class is our 6-week discipleship primer, basically. So kind of orienting people around the new Dream Disciple roles. And so when I look back on that, we really had people lined up where they needed to be. So Sarah, who is one of the writers, she's an eye in the widget, which is up at the top. And so until it got to you and me, we're more like in the ID area, like the D area, where you're like taking people's ideas and making decisions about the ideas. We needed to see it, watch it happen, get people's feedback, and then you especially could help tweak and help shift. And then she goes back and does her genius again. And so in all the way down, like when we're transferring it from the programming team who's creating the content to the sites team who's putting boots on the ground and running it through, that's where the tenacity, engagement, galvanizing comes in. And even just through the process of innovating, realizing afterwards, we had some meetings where it was like, we should have said what this was in like a genius kind of a language and a widget kind of a language, because it would have helped people realize, it's our mantle now. Like we're just finishing we're just finishing the thing. And anyway, this is a rambly one, but I feel like there's, yeah, that's right. And I still haven't fully developed it, but there's something about widget and innovation that I want like us to adopt as we move forward, I think.
Yeah, that's
great. And it can't be everything.
No.
But
but with
main
big,
things.
with big new ideas, you know, to run it through those proper channels, because if we don't, the downside, the danger is when you get implementers involved too soon.
Right.
Or when you get wanderers involved too late.
Right. No good.
You frustrate the crap out of everybody because the implementers are asking all the questions that you don't have the answers to yet.
Yeah.
Or the wanderers are coming in asking questions that they should have asked 3 months ago.
Yeah.
When we were first coming up with the idea. And so, if you get this out of order.
And wanderers are worrying about like, are we having eggs or are we having bagels? And you got like all this like crazy stuff happening that's like, and everyone's just frustrated.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's been great. It's been really helpful, a really helpful tool for us, to think about the front end, like you said.
Yeah.
The front end of new ideas versus just evaluating everything at the back end.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, my third one is more of a statement. Just the hardest thing to change is not what we do, but how we think.
Oh yeah.
And so, we're changing a lot of what we do. Mm-hmm. Which is hard in its own way, but it's not that hard, right?
No, you're just running different plays.
Yeah, we know how to do that. Yeah. We can run different plays. The issue is, how so I'll speak for myself again. I've been doing this model of church for 30 years, mm-hmm. and this is what I know. Mm-hmm. I know how to do mega churches. I know how to build a crowd. I know how to do the growth engine stuff. I know how to do all that. Yeah. And that's built into me. Mm-hmm. And so like I'll just give you an example. Like when we offer a new class or mm-hmm. offering or whatever, it's like, let's get as many people as, let's promote the crap out of this thing.
100%.
If we can get 200 people in the room, the only thing better would be to get 300 people in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, that's the mode and metric. And it's like, if we're going to do the work, let's get as many people. The shift is going, but like the way Jesus did it mm-hmm. was 3 and then 12 mm-hmm. and then 72 mm-hmm. and then 120 and then 3,000 mm-hmm. and so the multiplication thing is a handful mm-hmm. and then you invest and let that handful then invest in the next group and that handful invest in the next group. And so as we think about the multiplication side of it specifically, mm-hmm. we have to be very careful to not just apply the same old philosophies to new programs. Right. And even if the programs are more missional mm-hmm. and the programs are more disciple making based, if we're just still get as many people in the room as possible, right. we're still not thinking right about mm-hmm. it and letting it kind of build on its own. And I think Dave Rhodes said, if you build a missional model but apply mega church metrics to it, you're going to crush it under its own weight. Yeah. Because it's not what it was built to do. And so, the mindset shift thing has been big, and it's something that we still, I think, have to remind ourselves of in every single meeting and every time we talk about things. But mm-hmm. We just are coming through a decision right now on the next calling class and going, the instinct is...
Yeah, my instinct was like, why are you doing it in a small room again, Derek?
Let's blow it out. Let's do the church-wide, marketing campaign. Let's and it's like, no, let's do 16 again.
Cool.
And let it build. Yeah. So.
And thinking, and again, now there's a new space to innovate, which is, because even though you're saying what you're saying, we still have to have a strategy to keep people engaged, involved, all that thing. It just looks different.
Right.
And so now that's the space to innovate, you know, what that's going to look like with those people as it's growing and empowering them to make it grow. Yes. Which is going to be fun too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I mean.
Great, there they are.
There they
6
are,
things.
Guys. You know, we've 6 things.
6 reflections.
Okay. All right. So, like we said, this is, we're going to take a little break here. I think we're going to come back in February. Yeah. Mid-February, maybe. And so we just wanted to float some stuff by you guys, give you a little sneak peek what's coming in season 2.
Yeah. So we've got some great guests lined up. I'm excited. A couple that I'm really excited to see if we can get. We're going to be reaching out to some of the OG guys that have helped us develop all of this, Dave and Shane, and hopefully have them on to talk about some of this stuff. And we're really going to break down some specifics when we look at the topics about some of those Dream Disciple roles, tools, questions that we're using in this kind of discipleship build that we're doing, and have people in to kind of talk about the specifics of those things, people that are good at them, and it should be fascinating.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yep. We're also talking about some fun stuff. So we have the inbox thing now, and we've got some stuff around that, but we also floating some fun ideas of stuff to talk about. We both came through 90s Christianity.
Sure did.
And so we're talking about maybe some memories from that, or we even said, memories from the mega church or something like that. So some stuff that we did that was a little whack. We've been doing stuff together for a long time.
Yeah, we have. And everything you're unlearning, I'm unlearning, because I just learned it from you and the people around. This is a trickle down. This is a trickle down problem. No, but kind of like, wow, I can't believe they weren't arrested. It'll be stories like that.
Perfect.
Yeah, All right, so love to have you come back for season 2. In the meantime, don't forget you can go to dereksanford.com/reinventing church, and that's where you can submit more questions. You could submit ideas even for next season if you want to, and you can subscribe to Derek's weekly newsletter and get all the latest free tools and posts. He has some leadership tools in there and stuff, and the blog is ever going, so that's there too. Okay, so thanks for joining us for this season, and we'll be back in a couple months.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.